It just feels like a cheap knockoff product made in a dingy sweatshop somewhere that the studio insisted on putting out as fast as possible, despite it being made with shoddy parts, lead paint, and the hands of a malnourished child who just wants a better life. But they don't give a shit about that little kid and how malnourished he is. They need to make Megamind 2 to appease the shareholders and the television division of Universal. That's what they need to do. It's simply terrible. And the zebras and gazelles of The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride, would be very disappointed in this movie.
Deception, disgrace.
I'll admit at the top, I had no intention of watching or reviewing Megamind versus the Doom Syndicate, a sequel to a film that I wasn't the biggest fan of to begin with. Not to say that I hated the movie, but I didn't think it really measured up to some of Dreamworks Animation's really good or best films. Movies like The Prince of Egypt, Shrek, How to Train Your Dragon, or even more recent films like Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which I think is one of the best animated movies in the last few years. To me, it was slightly better than something like The Bee Movie.
You like jazz?
But I was surprised to see just so many of my own viewers being big fans of that project starring Will Ferrell and Tina Fey and David Cross and Jonah Hill. And also the online vitriol being directed at this straight to VOD release. You know, that caught my interest. And I thought I would, give it a watch, do a short review, and maybe I might come away liking it more than some of these people, who have seen it recently. And that's what I thought. but to give you a very brief synopsis and also catch you up on the events of Megamind. Taking place soon after the events of the first film, Megamind has assumed the role of Metro City's greatest hero. But when a villainous team known as the Doom Syndicate arrives to destroy Metro City, Megamind must form his own team to stop the villains. Before I go into my opinions on the film, I would like to point out that this film is being produced by Dreamworks Animation Television and not DreamWorks Animation proper, who did the original film and the cinematic movies that we all see all the time. They are a division of the same company though, and so you would expect, I guess, a certain level of quality at the end of the day, and not what this movie is, which, I'll be honest, this movie is dreck. This movie is terrible. This movie is awful. It's garbage. Watching this film, I was reminded of the direct-to-video Disney films of the 90s and early 2000s. Not in terms of quality, but just that era of VOD sequels to critically and commercially successful animated movies. Well, not every VOD sequel was good, like Pocahontas 2 or The Hunchback of Notre Dame 2. You did have a few bangers, particularly the Lion King sequels and spin-offs. The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride, and The Lion King 1.5 were actually really good and felt like a lot of effort was put into them. The animation was nice, you had terrific voice acting, and a number of the songs were spectacular too. Do you guys remember that zebra in the sequels to sing its ass off at Kovu?
Deception and outrage, disgrace.
That thing was amazing. And you even had that recent Lion Guard series that a lot of kids and also myself watched, and I ended up really liking it. And listen, I'm just pointing this out because some of those movies were pretty good and were better than they had any right to be. So there's really no excuse, any excuse, as to why Megamind 2, Megamind, I knew I was going to mess that up. I was like, they're so close to each other. The Megamind, Megamind, not Megaman. So there's really no excuse as to why Megamind is as bad as it is, and it is indeed bad. I mean, everything across the board, from the animation, storytelling, and dialogue is just atrocious. And as far as I know, none of the main voice cast returned to do this either. So no Will Ferrell, No Tina Fey, no David Cross, no Brad Pitt, no Jonah Hill. They've the characters that are in this movie, they've all been replaced. And you can tell, it's not them. Not really criticizing, the voice actors, but you can tell the voices are very different. The two biggest issues that I personally have are the writing and the animation. Again, just awful. The humor is wretched, and none of the jokes land. I didn't laugh or even chuckle once while watching this film. And it also feels like it's been dumbed down for little kids. Apparently this is like a lead-in to an animated series that's coming out or might already be out. I mean, I don't know. I don't really give a fuck. I don't think you guys give a fuck either. They also don't really care about the events of the previous movie either, because you have, kind of give you a brief recap. It's a play on the Superman origin story where you have, Krypton explodes and Superman, his parents send off in this rocket and he lands, in Smallville, Kansas, and he's raised, becomes, Clark Kent, and then he's Superman, yada, yada, yada. They do the same thing with Megamind. They do the same thing with Megamind and Metro Man, where their plans blow up and they go to Earth. In this case, where Metro Man, he gets the idyllic, living situation, rich family, loving parents, all that, becomes his hero. Megamind, he eventually crash lands into a prison, and it doesn't make any sense, but he is raised by the prisoners there and is eventually allowed to go to school, and abusive, kids and stuff, bullies and all that, right? Well, in this one, they kind of erased that. In this movie, there's a sequence where he actually went to villain school or villain academy. He's taught to be a villain, but that's I saw the previous film. That's not what happened at all. So they're already kind of contradicting themselves. It just goes to show you they don't really care about the events of the previous film or what people may have thought about that. It's just do whatever you want with this property. And I think that's lazy. That's bad storytelling. You're already contradicting yourself with this new sequel, because at the end of the day, the quality is not on their mind. They just want to mass produce this, shove this down those little bastards' throats, and try to sell some Megamind toys and maybe some Mega Man toys as well. But the CGI animation is just so cheap too. It's lifeless and it's stagnant. It's like the animators didn't want to have these characters move around at all, or just do anything perceived as entertaining, I guess. I mean, certain CGI animated shows from the 90s and the 2000s, come to mind. Like Reboot, Beast Wars, Jimmy Neutron, right? But although the animation may not have been amazing for those shows, for example, like with Jimmy Neutron, what Jimmy Neutron has over something like Megamind is that it had terrific voice acting, was consistently funny, and had some pretty clever writing to it too.
Good morning to you. Good morning to you. We're all in our places. We're so amazing.
Megamind has none of that at all. It just feels like a cheap knockoff product made in a dingy sweatshop somewhere that the studio insisted on putting out as fast as possible, despite it being made with shoddy parts, lead paint, and the hands of a malnourished child who just wants a better life. But they don't give a shit about that little kid and how malnourished he is. They need to make Megamind 2 to appease the shareholders and the television division of Universal. That's what they need to do. It's simply terrible. And the zebras and gazelles of The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride, would be very disappointed in this movie.
Deception, disgrace.
But what about you guys? Those of you who have seen Megamind versus the Doom Syndicate, did you like this film? Did you hate it like everybody else? Were you mixed on it? Please let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. Deception, disgrace.